Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vanshrushibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyah. सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ओम्। We'll just chant those 9, 10, 11 mantra. Andham tamah pravishanti, andham tamah pravishanti, ye vidyamupasate, ye vidyamupasate, tato bhuya ivate tamaha, tato bhuya ivate tamaha. Yao vidyaya gumrataha, yao vidyaya gumrataha. 10th one. Anya devahur vidyaya, anya devahur vidyaya, anya dahura vidyaya, anya dahura vidyaya. Iti shushrumadhiranam, iti shushrumadhiranam. Yenastadvichachakshire, yenastadvichachakshire. Vidyam cha vidyam cha, vidyam cha vidyam cha. Yastadvedo bhayagum saha, yastadvedo bhayagum saha. Avidyaya mrutyum tirtva, avidyaya mrutyum tirtva, vidyaya mrutamashnute, vidyaya mrutamashnute. Yesterday we saw definition of mrityu. Svabhavikam karma gnanam cha. Then this, or what is impurity? Life goaded by impurity. Life directed by impurities. Life propelled by those impurities is death. What is that impurity? Strong likes and dislikes are impurities. Raga Dvesha is called malaha. And that malam itself is death in a sense. It keeps the person going from one death to another death. It keeps the person taking from one birth to another birth. Because when one lives the life led by likes and dislikes, led by one's own fancies, desires, then there is a possibility that person may end up doing adharma, by doing certain improper things. And that may push or strengthen the ego and further karma phala, and the cycle continues. That is why raga dveshas are called death. You know, when one grows out of those likes and dislikes, when one learns to manage one's likes and dislikes, that's a first step to cross the death. When the first step to get release from the jaws of death. How? There is a methodology or attitudinal change. Anashritah karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha naniragnir na chakriya. Bhagavan tells this in the 6th chapter. First of all, to grow out of the holds of the likes and dislikes, two-step process is there. One, I commit myself to my duty. Not fancies first, but kartavya, duty first. That kind of value, that type of attitude in life I should have. One. Secondly, while performing the duties, there is one attitude. What? This I am doing it as an offering unto the Lord. Kartavya karma is done as Ishvara Seva, as a service to the Lord. And when it is performed in that way, one gains purity, antahkarana shuddhi. What does it mean by antahkarana shuddhi? One can manage, one gains mastery over likes and dislikes. One no more is a slave of his or her likes and dislikes. The person is no more dictated by those fancies, by those likes and dislikes. You go by dharma. You live a life of dharma, and with this attitudinal change, it gives you the purity of the heart. Moreover, to commit to duties, then one gains certain discipline of the mind. When they say tyagaha, when they say renunciation, one can renounce objects. One can renounce the world, but to renounce one's own likes and dislikes, that is a renunciation. That is sannyasa. Sannyasa is not just giving up the possession, giving up the relationship. No. Sannyasa is giving gneyasya nitya sannyasi yona dveshti na kankshati. That person is a sannyasi who has grown out of his or her likes and dislikes. So that sannyasa means purity of the mind. Relatively, the mind is pure. And now, this commitment to duty, as I said, makes the person quite alert. And that person commits to what? Vidyam cha avidyam cha. Vidya avidyaya mrutyum tirtva. Because of avidya, he crosses the death. And one more meaning of death is pramado vai mrityu. You see, laziness and pramada are different. Pramada means not to do what is to be done in spite of knowing this, or to misuse or abuse something is pramada, knowing fully well that this vastu is meant for this. Our buddhi is meant for moksha. Buddhi is meant for atma anatma viveka. Buddhi is not meant for dharma, artha, kama. True, primarily for dharma, artha, buddhi. You discern what is dharma and adharma. And then you commit yourself to dharma. And later on, you commit yourself to moksha. Buddhi is given capacity to know, is given to know yourself. And not to endeavor to know myself and use this buddhi for artha kama is pramada. That is death. That is misuse, or you can say abuse of buddhi. Abuse of special capacity, the strength that has been given to us. And because of this strength, one can really become stronger. There is a beautiful vakya, swabhava jayaha vijaya. What is a real victory in life? What is a real strength in life? The strength is not simply in terms of possessions. I am powerful in terms of my resources, my money, my power, my position, my connections, even physical strength, macho, 5 packs, 10 pack. These are all pack business, modern society. That's not the strength. Strength is capacity to tell no to myself, capacity to restrain my mind when it wants something but just for sheer fulfillment of a fancy. And my buddhi says this is improper. That capacity to stop yourself from doing something which you ought not to do, and capacity to push myself to do something which I ought to be doing, that is a strength. Okay? Mano jayaha eva vijayaha. The real victory is that I have strength. I can manage my mind. I am no more slave of my mind. My wisdom prevails in all my actions. My knowledge prevails over my fancies and desires and likes and dislikes. My unteaching prevails, or if I use a modern word, my conscience prevails. And when you let loose the mind, and the mind goes by fancies, very beautifully described that person, in the second chapter by Bhagavan, in the Sthita Prajna section, Indriyanam hi charatam yan manonu vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayur navam ivambasa. Just as a boat without a rudder and a machine is tossed hither and thither in the sea, in the middle of the sea. It just moves around directionless and hit by the waves and the breakers and ultimately breaks and get perished. So also the person without any control over one's mind, the person living a life of fancy. I felt like doing and I do it. And I don't feel like doing and I don't do it. That person is like that. In other words, the person who submits all the time to fancies is like the Duryodhana who says, Janami dharmam nachame pravru. I know what is to be done, but I just cannot commit myself. I know what is not to be done, but I cannot withdraw myself. The real strength of a human being is not the power, not the position, not the possessions, not the connections. Real power is you can commit yourself to dharma. You can refrain from adharma. That is the strength. And not to use buddhi to develop that is pramada. And that is indeed death. This person, when one is alert to oneself and gains a strength, that is called Shuddhanta. Pure heart is not a weak heart. Pure hearted person is a strong person in a real sense. All the problems today of guilt and hurt is there because you didn't do what was to be done and you didn't stop from what was not to be done. It creates all kinds of problems in relationship everywhere. Anyway, coming back to this person avidya mrutyum tirtva, next mantra, next half of the section of the mantra says vidyaya amrutam ashnate. He gains immortality by knowledge. Gaining immortality by vidya. Here we have discussed. Vidya means upasana. These upasanas takes to one, the phalam of upasana is to go to those different lokas where the time scale is entirely different. The other day I told you, time scale of human being and time scale of those flies that they are born and they die in monsoon. Their lifestyle, that lifespan is very fickle, hardly few minutes. For them, human life is immortal, relatively. So also, people in Devaloka and Swamaha, Janaha, Tapa, Satyam Loka have a different time scale. Mrityum Tirtva means they go to those lokas and gain. Amrutatva means relative longevity or pleasures. One. Secondly, when you do upasana is not meditation. Please understand. Upasana necessitates focusing the mind on Ishvara. When you focus the mind on Ishvara, that means that Ishvara Smaranam, Ishvara Anusandhanam, remembering the Lord, will bless the person with necessary purity of the mind. The phalam of Bhagavat Nama Japa or Bhagavat Smaranam, the result of remembering Ishvara or doing the japa is that mind gets pure. So upasana helps in two ways. It purifies the mind and gives necessary single pointedness, necessary concentration of the mind required for Shastra. And that is also Amrutam. In a sense, one develops Daivi Sampat. In course of time, those qualities of the mind described in the chapter 16, they are called Daivi Sampat. And Bhagavan says in the 16th chapter, Daivi Sampat is for moksha. Nibandhaya Asuri Mataha. Asuri Sampat binds the person, whereas Daivi Sampat releases the person from the bondage of samsara. So that's a prerequisite. It gives them necessary preparedness of the mind to gain moksha. Therefore, vidyaya amrutam ashnute. Person gains amrutatvam through vidya. It is said in that sense. Secondly, that also makes person alert, makes person introvert to his or her way of thinking. Because you are dealing with your mind. Doing upasanas, you have to deal with your mind and then you become conscious about your ways of thinking. That alertness makes the person more introvert, and that introvert person can internalize the teaching. Whatever one has learned at the feet of the teacher, one does internalization. That means it aids the process of nididhyasana. Therefore, it is said, Vidyaya Amrutam Vindate. So, the essence of this is the mantra in our life. Both the things are necessary for a seeker. Knowledge is always immediate. Any knowledge. When you pursue knowledge, knowledge doesn't take time. When there is a pramana vyapara, when the means of knowledge is employed, knowledge takes place there and then. It doesn't take any time gap. It doesn't take any another effort required. It's immediate. Like you are hearing my words and you know it right now what I'm talking. You smell something, you immediately know the nature of the smell. Knowledge is immediate. In spite of listening the Shastra from a competent teacher again and again, and if I don't own up the knowledge, that means there is a secondary obstacle in terms of antakarana ashuddhi, impurity of the mind, and relative restlessness of the mind, which needs to be addressed. Just as we have time for study, we should have some time for certain upasana, certain puja, certain japa, certain stotra parayana, or certain dhanam of Ishvara, whatever the form of Ishvara you like. But it should be a part of our daily routine. And this have had been our culture. What? From childhood itself, children were asked to do Gayatri Japa. That was Upasana. Childhood itself, in our culture, we are made conscious. We are given a value that we should commit to our duties rather than the fancies. My personal freedom is subservient to my duty. That's what our culture is. I don't demand my freedom first and then duties if it is convenient. No, whether convenient or inconvenient, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, whether you have some other things to do or not, one must commit to one's duty. That value was given from childhood. And upasanas were given from childhood, which is the reason was the goal of the human life being moksha, this lifestyle, this particular value to do the duty and do the upasana would lead to necessary qualifications, namely Vivek, Vairagya, etc. And person would be ready for moksha. So both should be there. The chanchalyam, fickleness or restlessness of the mind is addressed by upasana. And this fancies, likes and dislikes, is addressed by commitment to duty and performance of duty with certain attitude as in service to Ishvara, offering to Ishvara, that is being addressed. So in life, there should be samuchaya. Both the things should be pursued together. Having said that, now the question may come, because in the next three mantras, there is no discussion about duties, because duties varies from person to person. His and her position in a given situation. Then the question comes, what type of upasana should I be doing? What should be the object of meditation? That is being discussed in next three mantras. And in a typical Upanishad, there's a unique way of talking about, and that look at this. That upasana is being talked about in next three mantras. Andham tamah pravishanti, andham tamah pravishanti, ye sambhutimupasate, ye sambhutimupasate, tato bhuya ivate tamaha, tato bhuya ivate tamaha, ya usambhutyagumrataha, ya usambhutyagumrataha, andham tamah pravishanti, ye sambhutimupasate. Tato yandham tamah pravishanti ye sambhutimupasate. Tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau utsambhutyagum rataha. Tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau sambhutyagum rataha. Andham tamaha pravishanti. Same thing. What was same? This is the half of this first line of the 12th mantra and the 9th mantra. Then again 10th and 13th, they are same. Look at the 9th mantra. It begins with Andham tamah pravishanti. They enter into blinding darkness. The second half of the first line there in the 9th mantra is Ye avidyam upasate. Here it says Ye asambhutim upasate. And then he says second line is also same, first half. Tato bhuya ivate tamaha. 9th mantra, same thing. Tato bhuya ivate tamaha. And 12th mantra also. Tato bhuya ivate tamaha. Ya'u is also there. There it is Vidyayagum rataha. And here it says Sambhutyagum rataha. They enter or they reach the blinding darkness who are committed to asambhuti. And those who are committed to sambhuti, they enter into further blinding darkness, darker blinding darkness. Okay. So the subject of upasana is being discussed. In a way, all of us are upasakas. Now, if you just look at that way, committing, our mind is always brooding over something. That is upasana, focusing the mind. Either in one word, you can say the mind generally is focused on vishayas. Vishaya means something other than me. Some object, which is some object of experience. Which experience? A sukha experience. I am always thinking of that. And that is subjective. Which object gives me sukham? That is a subjective perception. Even the object may be same, but the quantity is again subjective. Again, generally people see sukham in money. But how much money, that is subjective. So the mind is always brooding over, thinking of, always pursuing, always sort of planning and scheming how to achieve this particular object, which in my perception is a source of happiness. That's one way of, that is upasana. You can do upasana of Vishayas, or you can do upasana of Ishvara. Okay. And then here again it says these three mantras, like the 9, 10, and 11th mantra, it's censured. In the 9, 10, 11th mantra, Vidya and Avidya was censured. First thing what they did. Then 10th mantra, then what is the result of Anyadahur Vidya, Anyadahu Avidya? Separate phalam was talked. And in the 11th mantra, Shruti said Samuchaya, that both should be performed together. So also here, the Shruti is censuring Sambhuti and Asambhuti Upasana in this 12th mantra. 13th mantra, Shruti talks about this phalam, that Sambhuti Upasana is a different phalam and Asambhuti Upasana is a different phalam. And in the 13th mantra, Shruti says the Samuchaya is necessary, means both are necessary. Censure is not for the sake of censure. I had told you this earlier also. When anything is censured in Shastra, it is only from the standpoint of ultimate goal. When Shankaracharya says in Bhajagovindam, Artham Anartham Bhavaya Nityam Nasti Tada Sukhalesha Satyam, etc. Vishaya Bhogas are also censored, Naristana Bharanabhi Dekham Drashtva Maga Moha Vesham Etan Mamsam Asadi Vikaram Manasi Vichintaya Varam Varam, etc. Censure is not censure per se. It is from only one point, that it is not the end in itself. That end is moksha. End is self-knowledge. To emphasize that, when something which is a means is taken as the end, that is being censored, that is being negated, that is being dismissed. Don't do that. Idea is, means per se is good. If you need, you may use it. But then, means should not become an end in itself. Like in our Gujarati, they say, about the food. કે ભાઈ જીવવા માટે ખાવાનું છે, ખાવા માટે નથી જીવવાનું. I need to eat to survive, to feed. I need to feed the body that so that I can survive. But I don't live. So you need food for living, for surviving. But you cannot live for the sake of food. So much enslaved with the tongue. I have cooked this and I'm going to cook that, and this item should be cooked that way and that should not be cooked that way. And now I want to eat this and I want to eat that, and etc. etc. That is where you take the food as an end, as the goal of my life. Not food per se, but in a way, Vishaya Sukham, Jihvendriya Sukham, this joy or the happiness that I derive through my tongue becomes the ultimate goal. Therefore, it is sensual. Okay? So here also Sambhuti and Asambhuti is censured, not the censure by itself. In the 13th mantra, it will say both should be there in the life. You should have to pursue some Sambhuti and pursue some Asambhuti. Now, what is Sambhuti? Bhu means to be born or to be. That's a verb in Sanskrit. To be or to become or to be born. Bhavati. That becomes is also bhu. Bhutihi means utpatti. Bhuti has one meaning. Bhutihi also means glory. Therefore, we have word vibhuti, So, bhuti means utpatti, that which is created. Creation, creating process can be called bhuti. Sambhuti, that which is very well created. Very well brought into existence. That is utpatti. And sambhuti, that which is born, created, that means it is karyam, it is effect. So sambhuti means effect, sambhuti means creation, and sambhuti means name and form also. Because that is created, that means the name and form, at least new name and form. That means that which is vyaktam, manifested. So sambhuti means vyaktam, asambhuti is opposed to it, avyaktam. Sambhuti means manifested, sambhuti means effect, sambhuti means nama rupa, etc. Okay? Some karyam. So, what is born is always effect. And that effect has some names and form. It is manifest. Indriya gocharam, that's how you say it is born. That means available for objectification. So, sambhuti upasana means upasanas of effect, upasana of karyam, upasana of name and form. What is a sambhuti? Opposite to it. Sambhuti is karyam, asambhuti is karanam. Sambhuti means manifested, manifestation. Asambhuti is unmanifest. Sambhuti is limited, Vyashtihi. Asambhuti is Samashti. Now, look at this mantra. Andham tamah pravishanti. They enter into blinding darkness who are committed to karya, who are committed to that which is manifest, who are committed to that which is name and form, who are committed to Vesti. Not in Vesti means individual, not samasti. And those who are committed to Karanam, the cause, those who are committed to Samasti, total, those who are committed to unmanifest, they go to further blinding darkness. Commitment means what? I have seen people giving so much of importance, so much of value to what is manifest Jagat. Either, they always are concerned about what is seen by them, what is available to them, what is gross. You find two types of people very much concerned about what is seen, what is the effect, and they are indifferent to the cause. Some are very much concerned about the cause and what is unseen and forget about the effect. You know, like there are some committed to what is gross, name and from tangible, and some are committed to untangible. In the society, you will find they're so committed to health, public health. They want to help those sick people. They want to feed people. Yes, you should feed people. They are hungry. They are sick. So they do dhanam, charity for operations and medicines, and they promote such activities, etc., etc. Some are more committed to education. They say we should not help. The cause of poverty is lack of education. Let's commit to education. Cause of sickness is malnutrition, or cause of sickness is wrong habits. Let us educate them certain lessons of cleanliness and hygiene and certain rules, etc., and they commit to that. So there are people who look at the short-term requirement, immediate requirement of the people, and they want to reach out to them and they want to commit themselves to that. And there are some who look at the long-term effect. They want to commit to the people's not immediate needs, but long-term perceptions. And they want to help them in that way. So these are people. There are two types of people who are committed to gross and manifest. And the other one is who are committed to unmanifest and the cause. Okay? What the Shastra says, that one who commits only to the effect goes to blinding darkness. Why does Shruti say so? When you commit to effect, that means you are committing to name and form. You are committing to manifest world, and you remain oblivious of the cause of it, what has caused. So there's a partial commitment. And those who commit to the cause only, they don't address the immediate needs, the secondary obstacles. And therefore, they say they go to further blinding darkness. It's a figurative way of saying, okay? Means those who are karanam, prakriti upasaka, and those who are karya, jagad upasaka, those who are committed to gross world, they become so gross, they don't even see and much less they appreciate the need for other. People come and tell me also, Swamiji, everything is good on your part, But your seva part is very weak. You should have some annakshetra. You should have some hospital. You should work for some gross seva, which you are not doing. And there are people who talk on the dais. I don't want goody goody talks. I believe in karma. they, they don't think of certain strategy or long term thing, but they want a project to be implemented, to be executed. And when somebody is doing that work, that means that person is great. In a typical Gujarati saying, આપણે વાતોમાં માનતા નથી, કામમાં જ માનીએ. As though it is something to be proud of. During this corona, you won't believe there was so much of pressure on me. Swamiji, you must start when it started earlier phase, when it was on the March 20, Modi ji declared about public lockdown, the Janta curfew. And then he prepared everybody. And from March 22nd, he imposed the curfew. I tell you, so many organizations. More so, there is a thinking over here that religious organization must feed people. They were making packets of food and distributing and putting on social media, and some magazines were bringing out a special supplement of the seva done by religious people, and all kinds of things going on. But after April 1st, after April 30th, they saw that there is no end to it. Everybody stopped now doing seva and putting pictures on the Facebook and WhatsApp that we have fed 100 families and we fed 200 families and blah, blah, blah. Nothing. They think karma is the thing to be done, seva, tangible. But they don't address the cause. They say, bhukhya pete bhajan na thai, When you are hungry, bhukhu pet is a prasa, When stomach is hungry, you cannot do any bhajanam. Roti sabse moti. These are all slogans there to justify that you should feed, Roti means roti, not bread, but roti is roti. Sabse moti, it is the biggest thing to be done. You should feed people. There are institutions in this area in where 24/7 kitchen is open. And anybody who walks in is fed. They don't question the linga, male, female, jati, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, which part of the country or which part of the world you come. Come in, the food time, have food. That's it. That's a good thing to do. But provided two things. You have resources to do, and it should be subservient activity, not the activity. It cannot be the goal of life. You are not going to eliminate hunger and thirst from the creation. You are not going to eliminate all diseases from the world by doing seva in charity in hospital. It may help. It is necessary. Those who don't have resources, and if you have more or extra resources, do it. But that is not the end in itself. Because mind becomes grosser and grosser. This kind of enthusiastic people and the groups committed to feeding and committed to seva in hospital and all kinds of people I have seen. When they keep thinking of that, mind becomes grosser, mind becomes restless. Rajoguna pradhana. And that Rajaguna will give rise to more ragadveshas. Rajo ragatmakam vitti will give rise to more desires. Trishna sanga samudbhavam. And the person will end up into darkness. Darkness means what? Where consolidated ignorance. Means there are no chances of him or her turning towards the knowledge, gets further and further entangled into samsara, gets further and further and involved into these worldly matters. And these engagements, these entanglements gives rise to very strong likes and dislikes. He or she becomes very, very opinionated person. And that person, opinionated person means subjective person, can never ever become objective and see the things as it is. And that more subjective he or she is, more unhappy he or she would become, more entangled he or she would become. That is why it is says blinding darkness. They enter into blinding darkness. Who are these people? Ye sambhutim upasate. Tato aya sambhutyagum rataha. Those who are committed to sambhuti. And asambhuti gets into only blinding darkness. The sambhuti gets further blinding. Why asambhuti gets less darkness? Because when a person thinks of samasti, person thinks of the cause, he or she in course of time gains necessary subtlety of the mind. And because of that upasana, he or she becomes to some extent introvert in his or her routine day-to-day life. And that introvertedness helps him to look at his or her mind, his or her own mind, whereby one can understand your ways of thinking, the method of functioning of the mind. How does my mind take me for a ride, and where should I catch it? That kind of handle, he or she gains a handle to handle the mind. It gets a knack slowly, understands and gets a knack whereby he or she is not enslaved by one's own fancies, but still, like this Vidya Upasakas, Sambhuti Upasakas, they are lost in their thinking and they have a very subtle ego. Because any success, when you had planned the bigger picture, when success comes, then you feel that I am somebody, that I got this success. So, they are Sambhuti Upasakas will enter into blinding darkness because they always think of the cause and neglect the Vyasti, neglect the manifest world. They neglect the effect. They are always thinking of the cause. There should be balance between the effect and the cause, between the manifest and unmanifest, between the name and form and its karanam, between samashti and vyashti. That balancing should be there to imply that if one is committed to either of one, it is not either or, it is both should be. When that is not there, then that the phalam is entering into blinding darkness and enters into further blinding darkness. Meaning, as I said earlier in today, the ignorance, the veil of ignorance as though becomes thicker and thicker. That shield of ignorance from oneself becomes stronger and stronger. Tato bhuya ivate tava. Further or more blinding darkness means the shield of ignorance is very strong. They cannot think of it to moksha, and they cannot imagine of moksha. They always get lost into sambhuti or asambhuti. Both these people, even by fluke of destiny, this kind of persons, by some destiny, some punya, fluke of punya, if they come across some teaching about moksha, come across some guru, They are not interested. Like a typical Indian politicians, they come to Swamis for vote bank. Bigger the vote bank of yours, more the Swami has following. They keep all the Swamis in good humor. Because election comes, they go to this Swami and that Swami. And those devotees, innocent or gullible devotees, that's the right word, feel that this fellow is a devotee of our Guru, and there is a sense of belonging to organization. Like this in Gujarati, this Vaishnavas always say, Apna Vaishnavas, Apna, as though our Vaishnava. This Swaminarayan have a word, Apna Satsangi. Apna એટલે શું? Satsangi is a Satsangi. But Apna, that's a belonging. So then they start belonging to this person and then vote for it. So the mind is so gross that even you come across a Swami, that Swami, there are so many types of Swamis in India also. But you come across a teacher Swami, Brahmanista Swami, there again you look for only votes. There again you look for only connections. That is called tamaha. What is darkness? Not to see the problem. And when you don't see the problem, you don't see the solution. And you don't see the solution, you don't see the solution provider also. That means life becomes more and more entangled into avidya and its effect, prakriti and its karyam. That is why it is said, andham tamah pravishanti ye asambhuti mupasate tato bhuya ivate tamaha yau sambhutyayam, revealing in sambhuti and asambhuti. In the next mantra, they talk about the phalam. There is a different phalam of sambhuti upasana and a sambhuti upasana. You can interpret this when in reference to next mantra. Sambhuti means you take gross form as a upasana. Upasya, with name and form. And when you do upasana of prakriti, there are certain upasanas talked in Upanishads and Vedas about prakriti upasana, and they enter into darkness or they gain different phalam. That mantra we shall discuss in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. When the new year bring in more happiness.